Okay, students, if you remember your yesterday's class, we learned that there are two ways we can change the positive adjective into comparative adjective. We can say tall, taller, and beautiful becomes more beautiful. This depends on the number of vowel sounds in the adjective. If the adjective has one vowel sound, we add er. Otherwise, we add more instead of adding er. And the adjectives which end with y, for example, busy, happy, friendly, when we have adjectives which end with y, we usually change them into IER, change the Y into IER, happier, busier, friendlier. There are exceptions to this rule as well, but this rule or these rules apply on almost 95% of or 98% of the adjectives. There are some exception cases, but you don't need to worry about them. You will learn them with practice, with exposure. If you feel confused about comparative form of an adjective, you can always go to the dictionary. Most dictionaries tell you the comparative adjective of comparative form of an adjective. For example, let's go to the dictionary and check happy. Okay. Here, happy. You see, you don't get to see the comparative form written here. As you can see, nothing mentioned, happy. Okay. Why is the comparative form not mentioned? Because it is one of those adjectives that follow the basic rule. Okay. And that's why the dictionary does not separately tell you or maybe this dictionary is not mentioning. I can see that. This dictionary, let me go to the other one, Oxford. Yes. Oxford Dictionary mentions the comparative. Cambridge Dictionary does not mention it somehow. Take a look. Comparative, clever. You can also use more clever. So sometimes it's a good idea, guys, to look up words in a dictionary. Let me write another. Yes. Happy, comparative happiest, relative happiest. Somehow Cambridge University didn't mention it. Everywhere. The comparative and the superlative forms. Okay, never mind. Somehow they do not mention it separately. They'll just give you a few examples maybe to help you learn the superlative comparative form cleverest. I'm the cleverest kid in the class. Guys, take a look at this example sentence. In your free time, it won't be a bad idea to sometimes, just for entertainment purpose, you visit the dictionary, online dictionary. Nowadays, there are quite a few options, you don't really need to buy a dictionary. My mother is very clever with her hands. People who learn English by translating words literally, they will get confused with sentences like this. But any normal student, ordinary student, I would say, with ordinary imagination, can easily understand the meaning of this sentence if they have just not, take the words for their literal meaning. My mother is very clever with her hands. How many of you understand what this sentence means? My mother is very clever with her hands. Tell me, guys. My mother is very clever with her hands. If anybody understands what it means, please let me know. Yes, Nikhil?
It means maybe she cook well and she's doing something different from another normal mother.
Okay, she's very clever with her hands when she can use her hands more skillfully than other people. She can use her hands more skillfully than other people. So she's good at knitting. Okay, she's good at knitting because which part of your body do you use for knitting? Hands, you use your hands for knitting. So she is very clever with her hands. Some people, they're skillful, more skillful with their hands than others. Okay. So you have to understand it that way. Yes, you are not very far. When it comes to chopping and all, okay, some people chop very well. Other people every time have an accident, so they have accidents very often. They're not very clever with their hands, okay, like that. They're not very skillful. The meaning is given in a way, skillful. My mother is very clever with her hands. Okay. So comparative form. And yesterday I asked you to compare London and New York. I sent you 9.4. Did I send you 9.4? I don't know. Perhaps not. Let me share the audio files with you guys. 9.2, 3, 4, maybe 5. Copy. 9.2, 3, 4, 5. Let's listen to 9.4.
It's taller.
I think the Freedom Tower is taller than the Shard, but I think the Shard is more beautiful.
This person doesn't know for sure, but he has an opinion. He says, I think the Freedom Tower is taller than the Shard, but the Shard is more beautiful. Okay, he doesn't know, right? He doesn't know which tower is taller. He says, I think the Freedom Tower is taller than the Shard. He could be right. He may not be right. Okay.
I think the underground is more expensive than.
I think the underground is more expensive. The underground is the train service in London, okay? I think the underground is more expensive than the
subway,
than
and the
this-
trains are more crowded.
than the subway. Subway is the train system, railway system in New York. So this man says, I think the underground is more expensive than the subway, and the trains are more crowded. It means he's saying that the underground trains are more crowded than the subway trains. Trains in London are more crowded. The trains in London are more crowded. And when you hear from me, the trains in London, then you should understand that, okay, अच्छा, ऐसे English में ऐसे बोला जाता है नहीं. Hindi में we have other options, like we can say London की trains. लेकिन English में बोल रहे trains in London. Trains in London are more crowded.
There are more parks in London.
There are more parks in London. London has more parks. There are more parks in London.
And they are bigger.
And they are bigger as well. These parks are bigger.
And nicer, I
And nicer, she thinks.
think.
I think the weather in New York is hotter in summer.
He says, I think the weather in New York is hotter in summer. He's comparing the weather in London and the weather in New York. So in the summer season, the weather in New York is hotter than the weather in London. So New York has hotter summers
And colder in winter.
and colder winters, which is strange. Now it happens some places like Delhi. Compare Delhi and Bihar Sharif. In summer season, Delhi is hotter, and in winter season, Delhi is colder than Bihar Sharif too. The minimum temperature in Bihar Sharif goes down to 6 or 7, but when it is 6 or 7 in Bihar Sharif, it would be 5 maybe in Delhi.
It's also wetter. But I
New York is also wetter,
think New York is sunnier.
but he thinks that New York is sunnier. So if you don't understand what they're saying, don't listen, just quietly. Ask me to explain. However, these sentences are the most basic. They're using the comparative adjective. They are comparing London and New York.
I think the people in New York are friendlier, but I think Londoners are more polite.
This woman believes and thinks that the people in New York are friendlier. She believes Londoners are more polite. I know sometimes we confuse the words friendly and polite, okay? Friendly means warm towards you. You know, they make you feel welcome, all right? They're warm towards you, warm, you know, friendly people, a friendly classroom, friendly classmates, friendly teacher. But polite shows respect towards you, that's it. They show respect towards you. They maintain their distance. They do not ask you very personal questions. They are polite. So people in London are polite, according to this woman. They're more polite than the New York people. But people in New York are friendlier. Okay, I would like you guys to repeat the sentences you hear, okay? And repeat after you understand them. If you don't understand them, don't just repeat the words. I hope you understand the idea and repeat the sentence.
9.4. I think it's taller.
I think the Freedom Tower is taller than the Shard, but I think the Shard is more beautiful.
Okay, repeat. You have not even unmuted yourself. Am I audible, guys?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Are you still sleepy, guys?
Freedom Tower is taller than
Mhm.
the Shard,
Mhm. But
but I think the Shard is more beautiful.
okay, everybody, I ask you all to repeat.
I think the Freedom Tower is more taller than the Shard. I think the Shard is more beautiful than the Freedom Tower.
In natural speech, the word but will automatically come. I think the Freedom Tower is taller than the Shard, but the Shard is more beautiful. Repeat. Everyone.
The Freedom Tower is taller than Shard, but Shard is more beautiful.
Rajiv, how do I understand your personality? Right on your screen, you see the Freedom Tower, the Shard, but you dropped the word the and you said Shard and Shard 2 times. How do I understand your personality? Why would you do that?
No, so the Freedom Tower is taller than the Shard.
Why did you have to be reminded for something that is right there in front of you? You dropped the word the from the Shard twice. I'm asking you, how do I understand your personality? Why would you do that?
By mistakes.
What kind of mistake is this? What kind of mistake is this? Can you explain the reason of this mistake? What kind of mistake is this? Explain the reason. I understand it was a mistake. You did not do it intentionally. Mistake means something that you did not do intentionally. I understand. Now, there is an explanation for mistakes, why those mistakes happen. So can you tell me why you didn't say the Shard, you said Shard twice?
A little habit, sir.
What habit? What habit? Did you know about the Shard before? Had you heard the word the Shard before as Shard? क्या आपको द शार्ड की आदत नहीं थी? शार्ड की आदत थी पहले से? राजीव, तो फिर कौन सी आदत की बात कर रहे हो?
I want to say the Shard, but mistake Shard.
तो ये मिस्टेक का एक्सप्लेनेशन क्या हो सकता है? किस वजह से मिस्टेक हो रही थी कि आप आगे उसको रोक सको? ये सोचो ना.
Concentration, sir.
That's right. Focus harder. And if all of you guys did this practice together, then we could quickly move on to the next exercise. If you guys individually speak one by one, then all 10 people will speak about the Freedom Tower and the Shard 10 times. It will take a lot longer, okay? So speak together in chorus, okay? Once the sentence finishes, you're going to repeat the sentence. All of you, unmute yourself and repeat. The Freedom Tower is, I think the Freedom Tower, because this person expressed his opinion, okay? I think the Freedom Tower is taller than the Shard, but the Shard is more beautiful.
I think
I
All of you,
think
all of you. I
Freedom
said all of
Tower
you,
is
all of you.
taller
Repeat, these
than
I
are
think
easy
SAD,
Freedom
sentences.
Tower.
The
but I
Freedom
think the
Tower is
I
SAD is
think
more
the
than the
Freedom
beautiful.
Tower
SAD,
is taller than
but
the Shard. But
the
the
SAD
Shard
is
is
more
more
beautiful.
beautiful.
Taller than the sword, but more
The Shard,
beautiful than sword is
the
Freedom
Shard
Tower.
is more beautiful.
Okay, Akhilesh, you practice it later at home. Okay, don't worry about it. I'm not worried about you. You're new to the class. If you can't repeat it, that's all right. Let's move on to the next.
I think the underground is more expensive.
Repeat.
I
I
I
think the
think the
underground
underground
is
is more
more
expensive.
Underground is
expensive.
more expensive.
Okay. If you travel 5 kilometers on the underground, and if you travel 5 kilometers on the subway, you will pay more money on the underground. It means the underground is more expensive. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes,
It
that
costs you
is.
more money per kilometer.
On the subway, and the trains are more crowded.
And the trains are,
More crowded.
And
which
the
trains are more
trains are
crowded?
more crowded.
The
Subway.
The subway train.
No. How would you know? How would you know that?
Underground train.
underground.
Repeat the sentence, then I want you to understand the trains means what. Come on, go ahead again. The underground is more expensive than the subway.
And the train are more crowded.
Yes.
The ground is more expensive than the
The
subway.
underground train.
This is the underground.
Have some extra information. The New York City subway is a rapid transit system in the New York City boroughs of Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx. It is owned by the government of New York City and leads to the New York City Transit Authority. Okay. Images. New York subway. New York subway. And the underground. An underground railway, especially the one in London. Images. This is the hallmark. Underground. The underground. It runs in a tunnel. Okay, underground as it is. It is also called the tube, by the way. The tube. People also call it the tube. By the way, this kind of information is not really important to learn English because we could have some other two places, like we can have Mumbai and Delhi, Kolkata and Delhi to compare. And then we will be using English without having to worry about what the subway is or what the underground is. But because it's an international course, so we talk about England and America and other countries more. All right, let's carry on.
There are more parks in London, and they are bigger.
Repeat.
There are more parks in London and they are bigger. And
They refers to
the parks.
parks. Which park? Of course, park. Which park?
The London parks. The London park.
Right.
And nicer, I think.
Okay, she thinks the parks in London are nicer.
I think the weather in New York is hotter in summer.
Repeat.
I think the weather is New York and hotter than the summer.
You messed up, Afri. Try and think and speak. Think and speak. The weather.
The weather in New York is.
Yes, now you're getting it right. Yes, Rajiv. Repeat.
The weather in New York is hotter than the summer.
No. You guys are not getting it, right? Okay. Okay, I'll repeat.
And cold.
I think.
Listen.
I think the weather in New York is hotter in summer.
What two things are we comparing? What two things are we comparing here? Tell me.
In summer.
What two things are we comparing? The weather is one thing. What two things are we comparing?
Summer, sir.
No. We are comparing the weather in London and the weather in New York. Okay?
Yes.
We are comparing the weather in London and the weather in New York. We're comparing the weather, okay, in these two cities. Let's compare the weather in Biharshif and the weather in Kashmir. What do you realize? What do you have to say? Obviously, that will be the first word, I think. Go ahead, guys. Obviously, the weather in Kashmir is
Colder
in winters,
Colder in winter.
right?
Colder in winter.
Obviously, Kashmir has much colder winters than Bihar Sharif. Would you agree? Kashmir has much colder winters, but the summers are hotter in Bihar Sharif. When it is summer in Kashmir, it will go to 30, 32, 35 maybe. Let's find out the maximum temperature in Kashmir. Highest temperature in Kashmir in summer. During summer, the temperatures are not very high and often don't exceed a high of 30 to 31 degrees. Told you? So in summer season, Kashmir goes up to 31 degrees. All right. So obviously, Kashmir is much colder. The winters are freezing. And even the summers do not have a temperature higher than 31 degrees. But Bihar has much hotter summers. And winters, of course, Bihar cannot have winters as cold as Kashmir. Kashmir winters are much colder. Okay, so remember what you're comparing first of all. Once you know what you're comparing, then the sentences will make better sense to you. Okay, listen again.
And colder in winter. New York is hot in New York.
Listen.
I think the weather in New York is hotter.
Now it's easier to compare. The weather in New York is
Hotter.
hotter
Is
in
hotter.
summer. Hotter than
Hotter than
New York,
New York. No. London. Hotter
London,
than the
sir.
London. Hotter than London.
Okay, good. Please listen again.
In summer. I think the weather in New York is hotter in summer.
Repeat.
I think the weather is New York. The weather in New York is hotter than in summer. Hotter in summer.
Okay. Hotter in summer. Yes. We should understand hotter than the weather in London
And colder in winter.
and colder in
And
winter,
colder in winter.
which
And
is
colder
strange.
in
Now,
winter.
it means people in New York experience a wider range of temperature. People in New York experience a wider range of temperature because it's colder in winter and hotter in summer. So the range, the temperature range is much, much wider than London. London doesn't have as cold winters, okay? And the summer in London are not as hot as summer in New York. So people in England or people in London, they do not experience a wider range of temperatures. Okay.
It's also wetter.
It's also wetter, wetter. It's also wetter. It refers to what?
The weather. The weather.
Again, a silly answer. Of course, the weather, but which weather? Bihashri weather? Kashmir weather?
The London. No, sir. In New York weather. The New York weather.
The weather in New York or the New York weather. All
in New
right.
York.
Yes, that's right.
But I think New York is sunnier and colder in winter.
Let's listen
The weather
again.
in New York is hotter.
The weather in New York is hotter in summer. So if you don't like very hot summers, where would you like to be in summer season? In New York or in London? If you don't like very hot summers,
London.
right? And if you enjoy very cold winters, where would you like to be? In London or New York?
I would like to prefer New York. New York. I prefer in New
Right.
York.
People who enjoy very cold winters would prefer to be in New York, right?
In summer and colder in winter. It's also wetter.
It's also wetter. So obviously we are talking about the weather in New York because it's colder in winter, hotter in summer. It's also wetter. Now, what does this mean? It's wetter. It's wetter means there is more rain in New York. You know, the rain is measured, how much rain a city or a place has. It is measured in, they say 10 centimeter rain, 12, 20 centimeter rain, like this, okay? So they measure the rain as well, and they have concluded that New York is wetter. What, okay, if I compare Assam and Bihar, which do you think, state, not city, which state is wetter, Assam or Bihar?
Bihar,
Okay, how do you know that?
because I live here.
And how do you know about Assam? Rajiv,
As- Assam,
yes.
Assam peoples are very little.
What was my question, Rajiv?
Weather, sir.
Repeat my question, Rajiv. You can repeat it in Hindi as well, Rajiv, no problems. Rajiv, repeat my question in Hindi. You won't repeat? You refuse to turn off your mic? Turn on your mic, I mean? Yeah. Go on.
Bihar weather, sir, or Assam weather.
Okay. Repeat my question in Hindi as well. You can do it in Hindi.
आपको कहाँ अच्छा लगता है?
Okay.
बिहार
I wasn't saying better, Rajiv. I wasn't saying better. I was saying wetter. W-E-T-T-E-R. W-E-T-T-E-R. Wetter, not better. I wasn't saying better. B-E-T-T-E-R. I was saying wetter. W-E-T-T-E-R. Okay. Wetter,
Okay.
not better. So which place do you think is wetter? Assam or Bihar?
What is it mean, wetter? I think Assam.
Which state is wetter? Bihar or Assam?
Assam is better than Bihar, sorry. Bihar.
Hindi meaning of weather, sir.
Wetter comes from which adjective, my dear?
Wet.
W-E-T. Okay. Wet clothes, dry clothes, you understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Wet clothes in Hindi?
Gila kapda.
All right. And wet weather?
बारिश का मौसम.
Right. So when we say which state is wetter, W-E-T-T-E-R, what could it mean?
बारिश कहाँ होती है सबसे ज्यादा? बारिश
सबसे ज्यादा तो नहीं, इन दोनों में comparison. I said which
Assam,
state?
Assam, sir.
Assam is wetter, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And if you compare Bihar and Rajasthan, which state is wetter, Rajasthan or Bihar?
Bihar is weather, sir.
Bihar is
Wetter.
than Rajasthan.
Wetter. How do you say it? Wetter. W-E-T-T-R. Don't confuse it with better. Better. Wetter. Wetter. Okay. Can you say the words?
W-E-T-T-E-R. Wetter.
Right. And?
B-E-T-T-E-R. Better.
Very good. Everybody else? Everybody else? Practice the two words, wetter and better. Hello? Yes.
Wetter and wetter.
Did you notice how Nikhil practiced? He spelled the word and then he pronounced it. Come on, do it.
W-E-T-T-E-R, wetter. B-E-T-T-E-R means better.
Very well done. The thing is, when I ask to practice, why are some people reluctant to practice? They don't want to practice. It means they think they learn without practice. Or what? I don't understand. Or they don't want to learn. Because I said, I'm waiting, practice, Nikhil practice, after Nikhil, Rajiv practice. The rest of you guys, did you practice without unmuting your mic, maybe? I hope so.
And me too, sir.
Okay, good. All right. So New York is wetter. It means New York has more rain than London. Okay.
But I think New York is sunnier.
But New York is sunnier too. Okay. This is strange now, a little. That New York is wetter, but it is sunnier. It rains more in New York, but when it doesn't rain, it is sunny. Okay. And London is not as sunny as New York. New York is sunnier. What does that mean? New York is sunnier means Rajiv? New York is sunnier.
Means very hotter.
Nah, it has nothing to do with the temperature. Okay. Sunny has nothing to do with the temperature, guys. It can be sunny, but not very hot. It can be sunny and very hot. Okay. So sunny has nothing to do with the temperature. Okay, everybody?
Yes.
So sunny means the sun is out. Okay, that's all. We have the sunlight. There are days we don't get any sunlight. Those days are not sunny. Okay, when we say it is a sunny day today, it means the sun is out. Okay. In India, we have a lot of sunny days, and that's why solar panels can be very useful in India. And we are going to have our solar panel installed within a couple of weeks. You know, everything has been done. Our meter has become net meter. I don't know how they do it, but I'm not getting any electricity bill anymore. And within a week, I think, they will install the solar plates. And by the end of this month, we will be harnessing, solar power. We will be getting electricity of our own 20 units every day. That will be amazing.
For 2 years.
For? Sorry, Nikhil?
Nothing.
For 2 years. What did you say, Nikhil? For 2 years?
Nothing.
You said something.
Sir, you told us okay, 20 units. I repeat it, but nothing.
So just say, don't say nothing. Say, I repeated your words 20 units.
Yes, sir.
Don't say nothing. What is nothing? When you clearly notice that you know that we heard you say something and you say nothing, that will make us curious now that you said something and now you're saying nothing because we didn't hear it. So especially because we didn't hear it, you should have made it clear. Sir, I just repeated your 20 units. I repeated your words, 20 units. That's all. Instead, you said nothing. Now I was curious. What did he say that he doesn't want to repeat? Did he abuse me? Did he insult me? Okay. So New York is sunnier too.
I think the people in New York are friendlier.
Now repeat.
I think
the people
of New York is friendlier.
friendlier.
Okay, Nikhil Babu and now Rajiv Babu, focus harder. We have already heard the weather in London, the buildings in London, and now it is about the people. Then why did Rajiv say people of London or in New York? Why didn't he say people in?
People of
But I think
London.
Londoners are more polite.
Listen.
People in New York are friendlier.
Did you hear that? I'm just saying, observe करेंगे तो कुछ गलतियां सही हो जाएंगी observe करने से. The people in New York are friendlier.
I think Londoners are more polite.
But Londoners are more polite. Londoners means?
London people.
The people in London. The London people. Okay. Londoners. Okay. Well done. Super. We are done here. Okay. Now, listen, I want you to have some thoughts in your mind that yesterday I told you how to change adjectives in the comparative form. In a typical class of English, this chapter would be over right there, right? Today's class is an extension of the same lesson. Am I right, guys? Today, we are not learning a new concept. We are still working on the same concept of comparative adjectives. And tell me, which day are you facing more problems, today or yesterday? Hello?
Yesterday, sir.
What problems did you face yesterday?
Comparative adjective.
I believe that majority of my students found yesterday's class easier because they had to just learn the rules. But today they are practicing and there are sentences. So it is not about just the comparative forms anymore. It's about now the English language. So if you ask, somebody asked me, what are you going to teach me today in the class? Okay. Suppose there was a new student. Okay. And if he asked me, sir, what are you going to teach? And if I said comparative adjective, and imagine if his English is a little okay. So I know comparative adjective, ER and more, right? More beautiful, taller, higher, smaller. I know these things. I don't need to attend the class, right? Because I know these things. So you know these things theoretically. We learned these things yesterday, but today's class was not about just the comparative adjective as a concept. It's about practice of English now. I believe more students will find today's class challenging and entertaining as well, because now we are still studying the same concept, but we have extended our class to practice from the concept. Okay, so guys, I have already shared 9.4 with you. You tell me, what do you remember about London and New York from this audio? What do you remember? Tell me anything that you remember. Or maybe before I ask you to do this, I would like to play it once again so that you guys can have more clear
9.4.
memory of what you
I
heard.
think it's taller.
I think the Freedom Tower is taller than the Shard, but I think the Shard is more beautiful.
I think the underground is more expensive than the subway, and the trains are more crowded.
There are more parks in London, and they are bigger and nicer, I think.
I think the weather in New York is hotter in summer and colder in winter. It's also wetter, but I think New York is sunnier.
I think the people in New York are friendlier, but I think Londoners are more polite.
Now, your turn, guys. Share anything that you can remember. Pratik, you haven't said a word in the class. You have been the least involved. Okay.
Sir, I'm not well.
You're not well.
Yes, sir.
Oh, what happened?
Sir, fever 3 days.
Hey, if you have a fever, you must go for a dengue test first, okay? Because these days dengue or dengue, as we say it in English, it is very, very rampant. It's very, very rampant. You know, it's everywhere. My sister had dengue, and then now my friend's, brother-in-law has dengue. He was hospitalized actually for 2 days. So anybody who has a little fever, they should first have dengue test, because the problem with dengue is if you take normal fever medicine like paracetamol and stuff, then your dengue becomes worse. Suddenly your platelets count goes down, and your platelets count goes down, not platelets go down. If I say platelets, then I'll say go down. Platelets go down. Platelets count goes down. Okay, count becomes a singular word. That's why. If you pay attention closely to what I say, then you will of course learn more. Okay. So yeah, that's the biggest risk. This boy, he's very young. He's 21, 22 years of age only. My friend's brother-in-law, his wife's brother. He's a very young boy, and he was admitted in the hospital, and his platelets count was 32,000. It's just that he's a very young boy, healthy. So he recovered quickly. After 2 days, his platelets count was up to 98,000. So that was good. That was good recovery and quick recovery. But anybody has a fever, they should not take it lightly. Okay, guys, tell me what you remember about New York and London. Compare the two cities. Talk about the buildings. What do you remember?
I think the Freedom Tower is taller than the Shard.
What do you remember about the parks?
I think the London parks are bigger and nicer.
And they're more in number. They are?
More.
London has more parks. Yeah, they're more in number.
There are more parks.
They are more in number.
And more parks.
Yeah, there are more parks, yes, in London. And how do you compare the weather?
I think the weather in New York is hotter in summer,
Colder
and colder in winter.
And it is also?
It is also wetter.
Wetter, yes. And sunnier too.
And it's sunnier too.
Poor London couldn't compete with New York. All right. What about the trains?
The
The
trains
underground?
are crowded.
The underground
The underground is
more expensive and more
than the
crowded.
subway.
The underground is more expensive and more crowded. And the people?
In the New York, people are friendlier.
Are London people
I think the London people are more polite and the New York people are friendlier.
Yes. Okay. Now, listening section. Listen to Larry from New York. Larry is an American, or is Larry a British and English? Hello? Is he American or is he English?
It is American, sir.
He is.
He is from America.
He is American. He is from New York.
Yes, sir, he is.
Who lives and works in London. He lives and works in London. Now he lives and works in London. Now he is the right person to tell you about, London and New York. Which things does he think are better in New York and which things are better in London? Listen and answer, okay? Which things does he think are better in New York and which things are better in London? Listen and find out. For which things London is a better option and for which things New York is a better option. Listen carefully to what he has to say.
9.5. Larry, an American living and working in London.
Well, I like both New York and London, but they're good for different things. New York is easier to walk around because it's smaller. The underground is better than the subway. It's much nicer, but it is more expensive. Of course, there are a lot of older buildings in London, so it's kind of more interesting. And I really love the parks here. My favorite is Regent's Park, but there are so many. I read that nearly half of London is green. That's amazing. I like it here in summer. It's a lot hotter in New York, and it can get way too hot there. Winters are warmer here in London, but they're so gray. In New York, winters are colder and snowier, but sunnier. As for the people, well, generally Americans are friendlier to strangers than the British. Life is faster in New York, though, and Londoners are probably more polite.
Okay, listen one more time, guys.
9.5. Larry, an American living and working in London.
Well, I like both New York and London, but they're good for different things. New York is easier to walk around because it's smaller. The underground is better than the subway. It's much nicer, but it is more expensive. Of course, there are a lot of older buildings in London, so it's kind of more interesting. And I really love the parks here. My favorite is Regent's Park, but there are so many. I read that nearly half of London is green. That's amazing. I like it here in summer. It's a lot hotter in New York, and it can get way too hot there. Winters are warmer here in London, but they're so gray. In New York, winters are colder and snowier, but sunnier. As for the people, well, generally Americans are friendlier to strangers than the British. Life is faster in New York, though, and Londoners are probably more polite.
So you listen. Which things are better in London? Which things are better in New York? If you are somebody who likes green fields, which city is a better option for you? Which city has more green fields?
Green field. New York is beautiful.
If you like walking around, you don't like traveling by, bus or train a lot. If you enjoy and prefer walking around, which city is a better choice to live in?
New York.
Yeah, he said New York is easier to walk around. Yes. And what else do you remember?
Because it is a smaller.
New York is smaller, right? What else can you tell me? Which things are better in New York? Which things are better in London?
The underground is better than the
Hmm.
Americans are friendly to strangers than the British.
and it's much nicer, but it is more expensive.
Okay. I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing, Afreen.
What, sir?
I know what you're doing.
What I am doing, sir?
You're reading the text in your book.
No, sir, I have not booked this time.
Don't do that, okay? Focus hard. Okay, don't get it easy. Imagine if you are doing an exam and somebody told you the questions before the exam, okay? Now, suddenly, you have to study only those questions which the examiner will ask, right? Which they will have in the exams. Other people will have to study so many other things because they won't know what questions the examiners will ask. So what happens that in the exam, you get better marks because you prepared for those questions only which they were going to ask. So you had more time to prepare for those questions. Other people prepared for some of those questions, some other questions, and they had to work harder. So they won't get the same marks as you, but after the exam is over, because you studied only those questions which were gonna be asked in the exam, your knowledge is limited. And the other person who studied about more topics, their knowledge is better, more, I will say broader. And that's why if you guys are asked to solve a practical problem, then the person who studied more subjects, more topics will be able to do better, right? So always remember, unfortunately, in our education system, exams and results are the most important things. That's why students never, ever appreciate the value and importance of sincere, honest learning. Our whole purpose of studying is to pass the exams, get good grades, get good marks. That's the most important thing. No matter how little you study at home or during the day, but if your results are good, you can shut your parents by showing your good results, and your parents will not be able to say anything to you. And no matter how hard you're studying, your parents can see that you're spending a lot of time trying, but if your results are not good, your parents will still complain. We are very result-oriented people, we focus too hard on the results. But I want to tell you that I am an exception here. I don't value the result in my class because I know one thing for sure. If somebody is adding sugar to water, then the water will keep getting sweeter and sweeter. There is no exception to this rule. So I don't worry about how sweet the water is becoming. I just want to see if people are adding more and more sugar or not. I don't worry about the water becoming sweeter. I know it will. It is bound to get sweeter. Nobody can stop it. This is a natural process. So similarly, I am not worried about my students learning because I know learning is a natural process. It will take place. People will learn for sure. It's just that they need to keep practicing sincerely. So whenever I see any lack of sincerity on anybody's part, I'm very quick to inform them, that listen, be sincere, be honest, okay? It can be carelessness, it can be something else. Because I said this for a reason, Afreen, I said this for a reason. Your words were exactly the same as they are here in the book, okay? And I am also aware that you have studied this chapter in the evening class only a few days ago, okay? So
Yes.
if you are saying it from your memory, if you're saying it after listening to the audio file, you are doing great. But if you're saying these things because these things are right in front of you, written in your book, then of course you can get some brownie points from your classmates. Oh, Afreen is doing great. Oh, Afreen is doing great. But that won't matter, because I told you, life is a different kind of exam. Here, questions cannot be out, okay? You have to be prepared for something that could surprise you.
I can't do anything for anybody's impressing, sir.
I like your sentence. I like your sentence, but I'm not anybody. I'm your teacher.
Oh, yes, sir. Sorry.
So you got to make sure that my impression is good of you, okay? And if I
Yes,
am
sir.
getting a bad impression of you, a wrong impression of you, then you do something to prove that my impression is wrong so that I can be more positive again. Because if I'm not positive about my students, how can I teach them, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
I mean, you know what? If you hire a labor, then the labor, whether he likes you or not, he will do his job. He has to carry the bricks onto the roof. He will carry the bricks onto the roof. Whether he likes you or not doesn't matter. He has to carry a certain number of bricks onto the roof for a certain amount of money. And here, whether he likes you or doesn't like you doesn't matter. But if I have a negative impression of my students, it will affect my way of teaching, and it will lead to my students' lack of learning as well. So that kind of attitude that anybody, whatever impression they have, doesn't matter to me, is not okay, especially when that anybody is your teacher. You should be
But sir,
smart
sorry,
enough.
sir.
You should be smart enough to understand the difference.
I say for my all classmates, sir, not only you.
I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. And Afrin, every time I say things about you, positive things about you, but beta, I'm your teacher. I have to be careful because you guys
Yes,
are young
sir.
people, you see. It's natural for you guys to be to make mistakes because unfortunately, the schools do not make you very smart. They tell you how to do mathematics, how to do subtraction and addition and stuff, but they don't tell you what is important in life. And I have seen this problem, with my students, that they sometimes don't appreciate what is really important. That's why I have to say these things. Otherwise,
Yes,
you
sir.
know
I
how,
have
how
no
happy I feel about your improvement. I have talked about you in your presence, in your absence as well. So I just want to make sure that you do not go away from that good path. Okay, that's all. My intentions are good, beta. Okay, you should know that.
Yes, sir. I have no problem.
Yeah. So moving on, now I would like to ask you guys to maybe complete the sentences, okay? I'm playing the audio file. Listen and complete the sentences, guys. These 6 sentences.
9.5. Larry, an American living and working in London.
Well, I like both New York and London, but they're good for different things. New York is easier to walk around because it's smaller. The underground is better than the subway. It's much nicer, but it is more expensive. Of course, there are a lot of older buildings in London, so it's kind of more interesting. And I really love the parks here. My favorite is Regent's Park, but there are so many. I read that nearly half of London is green. That's amazing. I like it here in summer. It's a lot hotter in New York, and it can get way too hot there. Winters are warmer here in London, but they're so gray. In New York, winters are colder and snowier, but sunnier. As for the people, well, generally Americans are friendlier to strangers than the British. Life is faster in New York, though, and Londoners are probably more polite.
All right. So, which city has cheaper transportation? Go ahead, guys. Which city has cheaper transportation?
London has.
Which city has cheaper transportation?
The New York City.
New York City, okay. New York has a cheaper transportation because number 2 clearly says the underground is more expensive, okay. So New York is cheaper, the underground is more expensive. Okay. Sentence number 1, New York is easier to walk around because it's a smaller. The underground is better than the subway. It's much nicer.
Nicer.
I don't know what was the word used.
Nicer.
Nicer.
But it is
Much nicer. More expensive.
more expensive, more money, better facilities. Number 3, there are a lot of
Older
buildings in London, so it's kind of
more
More expensive.
it's kind of more interesting. Yes. Number 4, it's a lot
park in New York.
it's a lot in New York?
It's a lot hotter.
Hotter in New York. It's a lot hotter in New York. Okay. We just learned that New York summers are hotter than, the English summers. Okay. So the London summers, I meant to say. It's a lot hotter in New York. Winters are warmer here in London, but they're so gray. So when you say gray, you mean to say no sunshine, no sunlight. Okay. So the sun doesn't shine in the winter much in London. New York has colder winters, but they are sunnier. 5. Americans are
friendly to them.
friendlier. Comparison. Friendly सही है. अगर compare नहीं कर रहे हो ना, if you're just talking about Americans, if you don't have the British in your mind, then you can simply say Americans are friendly to strangers. सही है. But if you're comparing कि British लोग से ज़्यादा है, then you can't use the word friendly. You'll have to say Americans are friendlier to strangers than the British. And 6, life is
faster in New York.
Faster in New York though, and Londoners are probably more polite. देखो बताओ मुझे, राजीव ने कहा कल का क्लास मुश्किल था, मुझे लगता है आज का क्लास देखो, अब 9.5 देखो, no new ideas, वो concept वही है, so comparative adjective, लेकिन challenges ज़्यादा हो गए ना sentences में, so please spend time with 9.4 and 5. I have already shared the audio files with you guys. Yep. I've already shared the audio files. So spend time with them, listen to them, and work in your mind. Mental learning takes place in your mind. Okay, सारा learning तो दिमाग में ही होता है. गौर से सोचना, सुनना, समझना. So do that. Okay, and there will be a little bit homework in the practice book, guys. The first page of Unit 9. Okay, that's all for today, guys. Unit 9, the first page. Okay, that's all for today. We will carry on tomorrow. Bye-bye, everybody. Keep studying hard, okay?
Bye,
It's the
sir.
best thing you can do for your career. Learn English. Bye-bye.